Okay, so this is going to be my attempt to try to break down the results of the Spanish election and to try and convince you that there will be no Spanish government anytime soon. They're not going to be able to form government because of these results, which have become even more divided. They're even more split than in the previous elections, which were just in April this year. Anyway, so let's have a look at the different parties. First of all, we've got the centre-left PSOE Workers' Party that have come in first place with 120 seats out of the 350 in the parliament, so you can see they're a long way from an absolute majority, which would be 176. And we can see that the only way that they could, the only coalition that they could form would be with PP, which is the Partido Popular. They are the centre-right conservatives that would in no way could form a coalition with them. It would be political suicide. They have come second with 88 seats. And you can see percentage of the vote here. PSOE, the Workers' Party on 28% and PP on nearly 21% there. And in this proportional representation, you can see the amount of seats that is converted into. In fact, I think this graphic's probably better to look at first before we look at that big chart there, which is helpful for other reasons. In third place, we've got this party Vox, which are being smeared all over the media as extreme right-wing. They're being called racist, misogynist, all of these things. I think they're essentially just a traditional conservative party. It's just that the, here in this postmodern society that we live in, people have forgotten what it means to be conservative. So yeah, they're not big on abortion. They want to. They think that if you want an abortion, you should pay for it, not the state. And that. I think there's even some mention now. I don't want to get too into this because it's another thing that you can get sidetracked in. I think there was some mention of, of eventually prohibiting abortion, except in extreme cases like rape or when it poses a threat to the mother's life. But again, that's another debate to get into. I think they are, while they're not my views, I think they're views that can be defended. And a conservative, someone with traditional conservative values, would believe that life begins at conception, blah blah blah. That's debatable. You don't have to call them extreme right wing. I think that's conservative. I think that's it's seen as a bit antiquated and all that kind of thing. Fair enough, but I don't think they're looking to. I think let's just quickly define extreme right wing. I think extreme right wing is Hitler. I think it's someone who talks about racial superiority. I think it's somebody who believes that because of your race, because of your sex, because of your social class, something like that, that you should be in some way discriminated against in a menacing way, something that is a menace to your freedom. No? That homosexuality might be criminalised. It's extreme conservatism which strips people of their basic freedoms. Now, I don't think really that Vox represents any of this. Certainly doesn't represent a real threat to personal freedoms. The big issue was immigration as well. And I think, again, immigration is a big topic. You've got everything from people who think we should just have open borders to people who think we should have some kind of quota system like they have in Australia. And many other modern countries, it's we take you if we need you. I mean, you look at the USA, that has plenty of immigrants there, but it only has people the idea is to only take people who are working or, can prove that they're making a living for themselves there, and that's got enough problems as it is. You've got places like Switzerland where it's very difficult to become a citizen, but 25% of the resident population were born outside of Switzerland, and no, believe me, they don't all come from rich countries. There's a large Iraqi and Turkish population in Switzerland. Anyway, let's not go into that. My point is that immigration is a really, really difficult topic with a lot of nuance, and people are just so fucking quick to say, oh, we should have open borders, or oh fuck them, they can go back to their own fucking country. So it's like, there's a whole spectrum of beliefs and arguments you can have there. But basically, they want to introduce some kind of quota system. When we need so many doctors, well, we'll allow professional medics to come into the country, this many. When we, sort of like a supply and demand system, I believe is what they want. Then in fourth place, we've got Unidas Podemos, who've got 35 seats out of the 350 in Congress, and they've taken 12%, nearly 13% of the popular vote. And what do they represent, essentially? Well, I would call them extreme left. So one time when I've just sort of explained how the third party, Vox, they've been smeared all over the media. This party went through the same thing. They were smeared all over the place, but it does seem like they are apologists for extreme left-wing politics throughout history and across the world. Heavily linked to the Chavista and now Maduro regime in Venezuela. Hugely sympathetic in their views towards Castro and those sorts of regimes. They've even mentioned Lenin, talking about what a great Democrat he was. There's all kinds of quotes and things we needn't go into now. Essentially, they are this kind of manifestation of the bizarre left that is coming out nowadays. This sort of bizarre left wing that has come through in this postmodern period of social justice warriors and indignation on behalf of others, constantly calling themselves feminists, constantly wanting to change the pronouns that we use and all that kind of thing. They are pathetic for many reasons, but as I say, I want to break down the results of the elections and explain why we're not going to get a stable government in Spain. I don't want to go into the individual parties too much. Let's just have a look at the other parties here. We've got 13 seats, Esquerra Republicana, which is a group of left-wing pro-independence Catalans, and they've only got 3.6% of the popular vote, but that's given them 13 seats, whereas you see as the sixth party, Ciudadanos, who are essentially a centre party, perhaps a little bit centre-right, seem to be more focused not so much on social justice and social issues, but more on reducing taxes on self-employed people and that kind of thing, and raising the threshold for which you are exempt from paying income tax. So kind of looking out for the little guy, I think, at the same time as being sort of pragmatic and rational. That's what they sell. We're the centre. They don't want to define themselves as left or right, and they have pacted with the left and the right, the centre left and the centre right, I should say, on many occasions. In seventh place, we've got Junts pel Cat, which is a conglomeration, essentially, of a few Catalan pro-independence pro-Catalan independence groups. They've got 8 seats after getting 2% of the vote. And we've got a Basque national party in 8th place, the PNV, with 7 seats. And they are not so extremist. They are seen as a very sort of dignified nationalist party. They're not really pushing for independence as much as they were in the past, particularly since they got the Concierto Vasco, which is an agreement with the Basque Country, which came into place a number of years ago, which basically allows them to control their rate of corporation tax, which they immediately reduced by 1% and watched, rubbing their hands with dollar signs across their eyes, as all of the small and medium-sized, and including some big businesses, flocked to the Basque Countries, which is now, one of the richest regions in the country, outside Barcelona and Madrid. Possibly even richer than those areas. It's extremely expensive to buy property, particularly in the Guipuzcoa area and so on. Anyway, that's PNV. They basically represent Basque interests in Parliament. EH Bildu, they're a manifestation of the hateful Basque independence movement, which are strongly linked to ETA, if you can remember them. Basically like Spain's version of the IRA, who like to blow people up and put limpet mines on politicians and things like that. So lovely bunch of people involved there. Why is it going to be impossible to form government? Well, let's have a look. PSOE and PP cannot form a coalition. It's impossible. It'd be like the Labour Party and the Conservative Party forming a coalition in Britain. They're at very different places. They cannot be seen to be in similar places. They have to disagree with each other on almost everything, as is the dance of modern politics. So what was the idea before the elections? Because we knew it was going to be a very divided election and that a number of parties were going to form. We're going to have to engage in dialogue in order to form any kind of government. So the idea pre-election was this, that we had the left bloc, essentially. We had PSOE, the Workers' Party, who've won the elections, and the fourth place party, which is Unidas Podemos. The idea there was that those two, hopefully for them, they would have enough seats to form an absolute majority. We can see that that is not the case because they have got between them 155, which is 21 short of the majority. So they're not going to be able to form government on their own. Who else could come in there? Well, we've got a party here with 3 seats called Más País. They are a breakaway group of Unidas Podemos. They were formed only a few months ago in the wake of the previous elections in April. And they would certainly be more than happy to jump on the wagon with these two and make it 158, and then they'd only be 18 short of majority. Thing is, the other parties that they'd have to negotiate with, so we've got Esquerra Republicana with 13 seats. I mean, they are an independence party in Catalonia. PSOE cannot be seen to be bowing to the will of pro-independence parties in Catalonia. Now, there has been an interesting development this morning in Rufián, who's a member of the Esquerra Republicana, has come out saying that they will not put a red line over a new referendum. So he's saying that a new referendum, a first referendum on Catalan independence, a legal referendum, seems to be what his party wants, but he will not make that a red line in the negotiation with PSOE. He says that, but Catalan elections are coming up. Now, an interesting thing to bear in mind here is if we look at Esquerra Republicana with 13 seats, just behind them, behind Ciudadanos, we have Junts pel Cat with 8 seats. They are another group of centre-right leaning Catalan independence parties. And with Catalan elections coming up soon, they have the regional elections coming up soon, Esquerra Republicana cannot be seen to be weak in their negotiations with PSOE if they are to facilitate a government that will not, in turn, facilitate or be seen to be channeling national politics towards the idea of holding a referendum in Catalonia over independence. Esquerra Republicana will pay for it in their regional elections. So I don't believe them when they say that the referendum in Catalonia over Catalan independence will not be a red line when they are negotiating a possible inauguration of a government. I don't think that's true. Also, PSOE cannot in any way be seen to be bowing to the wills of the Catalan nationalists. It just can't happen. They would lose lots of votes. God knows what the reaction of the people in the street would be in the whole country, yet alone in Barcelona and in the rest of the Catalan territory. So I don't see how they're going to do it. They could depend on those Catalan nationalists. I don't really see it. Then there's also the PNV. The idea is if you form 120 plus 35 plus the 3 from Más País, they've got 158, and they need to get some abstentions because in the second round of trying to form a government, you don't need an absolute majority. You just need more yeses than nos in the congressional vote. So if they could get 158 yeses, a few guys to abstain, then maybe they could get more yeses than nos. I don't see that happening, though. I just don't see how that's going to work. They're clearly that rhetoric of no, we will not allow Spain to be fragmented. How can that be? How can that in any way coincide with or come into agreement with these Catalan nationalists? I just don't think it can. The right-wing bloc. Well, we've got PP, the centre-right, and Vox, the extreme right, which I think is debatable. They would make 140 if I have got my maths right there, and Ciudadanos, who in theory were going to help them form a government after the results in April made it look like those three would have very similar amounts of seats in Congress. Ciudadanos only got 10 seats after getting 57 in April, so I mean it's such an absolutely massive defeat for them in this election. They would only make 150. There's no way they can form government. There's no way any left-leaning parties are going to facilitate Vox becoming a member of government or possibly taking over certain ministries and things like that. It just can't happen. They can't do it. Again, it would be electoral suicide. So what's going to happen? Well, I think the only thing that could really actually work is if PSOE and PP worked together and they actually came up with some ideas that they both agree on. I'm sure there are certain things that they both agree on. They both seem absolutely decided that we're going to maintain the level of government spending. PSOE want to inflate it by 30 billion euros over the next few years, but you always have to wonder how serious they are. But if the last socialist government was anything to judge them by, under Zapatero a few years ago, from 2004 to 2012, then they're really serious. So, could they come to some agreements? Could Pepe get them to reduce their public spending plan? Could they back them in any way? I don't know. Somebody mentioned it this morning. The deputy president or something, vice president, I think it was on the phone on a radio show, on a call-in show, and she said that it wouldn't be impossible for them to start negotiating a possible agreement, even if it's not a coalition. But if it's only an agreement, well, I don't see it. I don't see how long this government can last, even if they get to form a government at some point. I don't see how long this is going to last. I will bet my mortgage that we'll have elections in 2020 here in Spain. I'll bet you anything. We'll see if I'm right.